The ads have attacked. Don't worry. We can wait for the ads to end. I must say, I'm a little disappointed that I dropped $70 only for the dual screen attachment to not fit on my handheld and not display properly. I'm gonna need to consult other people who've gotten this accessory and got it working. Because being able to play the dual screens on being able to play with the dual screens would mean I would be able to play games like Dementium the Ward on my handheld. Oh, we're still in the ad. Whatever. I'm just talking to myself, I suppose. They say that is the first sign of madness. But yeah, I was talking about the handheld dual screen attachment and the games that I could play on that, and I mentioned Dementium the Ward, and you know, Dementium the Ward has the honor of being the only video game I've played as an adult to give me nightmares. I played Dementium when I was like 25 years old, and the night after I first played it, I had a nightmare that I was trapped in that asylum, strapped to a wheelchair, wearing a straitjacket, and that there were like undead, hostile patients and staff coming at me. It was fucking crazy. There was an old Mauser, an old broomstick pistol on a table nearby, but I couldn't get out of the straitjacket to reach it in time. That was tense. Let's see, we've got 6 people here now. Avalon, Carl, welcome.
Welcome's Pickaxe.
Chibi, welcome. All right. I was hoping Lazy could make it, but it looks like Lazy might be running a little bit late. I think I heard about that game before. Yeah, Dementium the Ward is interesting because it was a DS game, and then it got a 3DS remake, I think, if memory serves correct. Or it might have been a Wii U remake. One of the two. Well, I have the story up already. Should we get into this? I'll preface this. This is a short story that's meant to serve as an epilogue to the first Let's Play I ever did on this channel as a VTuber. And it weaves in some of my VTuber lore into it as well. This is The Adventures of the Arbiter, False Names. The midday sun was high in the sky. The toll of church bells echoed through the air as joyous music sounded through the fields of West London. A young man stood at the pavilion wearing a luxurious suit, a far cry from his typical leather jacket, and his hair, usually done in a ponytail and styled to cover one eye, was done so that both eyes could be seen, and a young woman who had typically donned the attire of a witch was instead wearing a flowing wedding dress and a tiara similar to how her bridesmaid typically dressed. Melody tossed the bouquet in the air. As it sailed through the air, it landed in the lap of the bridesmaid. Meanwhile, the Arbiter stood back, towards the rear of the crowd. I'm happy for Pad and Melody. Without them, I never would have met Fiona. He thought to himself. The Arbiter had left Gallifrey almost 300 years ago to look for his father, the prodigal. Most in this time knew him by his Earth name, Gilbert Brown. And after the two had reunited, his father had offered to let him spend some years living with him and his second wife at their estate in London. It was the happiest moment of the Arbiter's life when he found his dad all those years ago. He had given up his post as a presidential guard to go and search for him. When the news that his father had gone missing under mysterious circumstances reached him, it would set the Arbiter on a globe-spanning adventure that had led to his meeting of his adventuring party. That was almost 15 years ago. He had met Pad while exploring the sewers of London as part of his initiation into the Adventurers Association, and the two of them had met Melody when they traveled to the small village in rural France to get the Maverick's flight core fixed. and the three of them had saved Fiona from the mysterious cult known as the Ancient Fathers Cabal at the Tower of Babel. From then on, the four of them would forge an inseparable bond, or so the Arbiter had believed. As the Arbiter reflected on how many years the four of them had traveled together, he suddenly felt a hand gently rest on his shoulder. "What's the matter, Eddie? You seem distant." Eddie had been his alias while working with the Adventurers Association and the Royal Exploration Agency. In spite of all they'd been through together, he still hadn't told them his real name, or where he was truly from. Perhaps he should have. Perhaps that would have meant the four of them would have stayed together a little bit longer. The Arbiter looked over his shoulder to see the comforting smile of Fiona. "It's nothing, I guess. I'm just hoping that'll be me one day." The answer was a deflection, but it wasn't entirely false either. He had been trying to decide on his next major life goal after he found his father during their quest to locate the tablet fragments and restore Fiona's memories. As he began to develop feelings for Fiona, he began to consider that marriage might be that next goal. He watched as Pad and Melody walked down the aisle together. Fiona's smile never faded, even though she knew the Arbiter wasn't being entirely forthright with her. "I know, Eddie. I'm going to miss them too. But think about it like this. They're not gone. They're just a bit farther away now." The Arbiter nodded. "True. We can always take the Slitneer to Merville Village and visit them. I guess I just don't understand it. I could never give up adventuring. And I guess I thought that Melody and Pad always felt the same way." Fiona laughed. "Getting married changes things. Sometimes you need a place to put down roots, not for your own sake, but for the sake of those people you care about." There was a pause as Fiona's voice took on a more playful inflection. "But if it helps, I feel the same way. I feel the same way you do. I don't think I could give up adventuring either, even if I got married. You all gave up part of your lifespans to save me, and I want to spend as much of that time we have left together, and I know adventuring with you is the best way to do that." The Arbiter's heart began to race. He could feel his cheeks grow warm, and suddenly his mouth felt very dry. Yeah. What I mean is..." Fiona laughed and kissed him on the cheek. "It's okay, you don't have to say anything. I already know." She lowered her hand from his shoulder to his hand. "Come on, Eddie, it looks like the dance is starting." The two approached the park's plaza where Melody and Pad had already begun dancing, stepping and whirling with the music. The Arbiter and Fiona joined their friends with no inhibition. A realization came to the Arbiter as he waltzed with Fiona to the rhythm of the music. It had been a very long time since he had participated in a formal dance like this. A nostalgic smile formed over his face as he thought back on how young he had been. Fiona noticed, and almost immediately as they had been looking into each other's eyes as they danced. "Something on your mind, Eddie?" Her voice was warm and inviting. She was completely unbothered by his absent-mindedness, or at least his mind getting lost in his memories. He let out a sheepish laugh and nodded. "Sorry, Fiona. It's just that Suddenly the reality of the situation dawned on him. Could he explain to her that like her, he wasn't from Earth? Could he tell her about Gallifrey, or the TARDIS, or his adventures in time and space? As he ruminated on the matter, Fiona's face took on an expression of gentle concern. "Eddie? Is everything all right?" The Arbiter shook his head, his spiky blonde hair swaying with the motion of his head. "Sorry, Fiona. It's just been a long time since I've danced like this. Back when I was in school." Fiona's smile slowly returned. "Well, you seem to be doing well for being out of practice, if that's what you're worried about." The Arbiter's contemplative expression shifted to one of serene contentment. "Thanks. I guess I was a little worried about being rusty." For a while, everyone danced. A number of waltzes were played by the musicians, although not everyone...
How are you
However,
doing today?
Most everyone danced. Scarlet, a retired sky pirate who had occasionally gotten caught up in the quartet's adventures, was hammering down as many drinks as possible, to the great embarrassment of her younger sister Estelle. Eventually, the time came for the last dance. The Arbiter and Fiona joined the other guests as they cleared the plaza so that Melody and Pad could enjoy their last dance as husband and wife. The Arbiter was tempted to leave. He hated saying goodbye. An old song from his childhood always came to mind when he had to part ways with people close to him, and it would always cause him to choke up. Not because it was a sad song, but because he knew the words were true. "It's so easy not to try. Let the world go drifting by. If you never say hello, you won't have to say goodbye. It's so easy not to try. Never stay around to cry. Move along when troubles come, like a mindless butterfly. For what good is it to love when the loving always ends? Travel on the road that's straight, not the one with hills and bends. Roads go ever on to the lands beyond the sea. On a white ship will I sail, watching shadows part for me, leaving havens gray with rain. Now that years have slipped away, leaving friends with gentle pain as they start another day. Roads I've traveled I must leave, for I've turned the final bend. Weep not empty tears, but grieve as the road comes to an end. It's so easy not to try. Let the world go drifting by. If you never say hello, you won't have to say goodbye. If you never say hello, you won't have to say goodbye. He reflected on the song as he watched the happy couple dance. As much as he wanted to avoid saying goodbye, he knew that he would regret it for the rest of his life if he didn't. He only wished that he wasn't in a public setting as he began to choke up at the memory of the song. Fiona gently squeezed his hand. She said nothing, but he knew what she was conveying. I know how you feel. I'm here for you. He greatly appreciated that she didn't say anything so that he wouldn't have to acknowledge that he was tearing up. As the dance came to an end, Melody and Pat slowly approached the Arbiter and Fiona. Thanks for coming to our wedding, you two. Eddie, you've been a great best man. Melody nodded at Pat's words in agreement and smiled. And Fiona, you've been a wonderful bridesmaid. The Arbiter tried to compose himself as swiftly as he could, but the emotions remained apparent as he let out a strangled reply. Don't mention it, you two. I wouldn't have missed it for the world. I'll never forget you two. Melody laughed and hugged the Arbiter. Eddie, thanks for bringing the two of us on such wonderful adventures. I want you to both to come visit us as often as you can. As Melody let go of the Arbiter, Pat grabbed the Arbiter's hand and clapped his friend on the back. I second that. Eddie, Fiona, both of you better stop by from time to time. The Arbiter nodded and let out a heavy sigh. I know this isn't goodbye, but it feels like it is in some ways. I'll be sure we both visit you two in Merville Village from time to time. Before anyone could say anything else, Scarlet staggered up to the group and locked her arms around the four of them, her speech heavily slurred. Oh, look ye kids! All grown up and getting together. I mean, you've all been together since I met ye, but you know what I mean. Ye kids remember how we met when I tried to rob ye ship? You've grown up so much since then. Who invited her anyway? Melody asked in a gasp as the vice-like hug from the Lady Sky Pirate strangled the group. No one, ye daft git. I invited myself after ye neglected me invitation. Estelle, face flushed from embarrassment, pulled her elder sister off of the four friends. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I told her crashing the wedding was a bad idea. Melody, Pat, Fiona, and the Arbiter let out a gasp for air. The Arbiter was the first to speak up. No worries. Just don't let her hug us again. I don't think my ribcage can handle it. The other three groaned in agreement. Estelle slowly dragged her sister back to the pews as Scarlet began to call for more drinks. Slowly, the Arbiter began to laugh. You know, I think I needed that levity. Melody, Pat, have a wonderful life together. Melody and Pat looked into each other's eyes. It was Melody who answered, though her eyes never left Pat's. Oh, I know we will. Fiona let out a small laugh. You two have come a long way from when we all first met. I remember how short you used to be with Pad. Pad playfully defended Melody from the observation. And I used to be a cynical brat before I met Eddie. We've all come a long way from who we were when we were younger. Although... Pad slowly turned to the Arbiter. What? I don't have a stain on my coat, do I? The Arbiter asked as he looked down at himself. Pad shook his head. No, it's not that. It's just that you and Fiona haven't aged a day. Melody looked from Pad to Fiona and the Arbiter and nodded. Pad's right. Since Fiona's from Asgard, it makes sense that she'd age slowly or maybe not age at all. But Eddie... A look of recognition formed over Fiona's face. They're right, Eddie. You look almost the same as the day we met. The Arbiter looked down at himself and then looked at his reflection in a nearby punch bowl. They're right. Maybe it's time I tell them the truth. After returning to his friends, the Arbiter began to sprout a confident smile. There's something I need to show you guys. Let's head back to my father's estate. A curious silence befell the three as they followed the Arbiter from the wedding plaza back to the Brown family estate. After a brief walk, the four friends reached their destination. The Arbiter led his companions to his room. You know, typically a bride only enters her husband's bedroom after their wedding, Melody joked, getting a laugh out of Pad and Fiona, but the Arbiter ignored the comment as he opened the nightstand drawer and pulled a small key-like object out of the drawer. Now, where did I put it? Oh, that's right, the East Hall. Fiona quirked an eyebrow as she watched the Arbiter march out of his bedroom like he was on a mission. Eddie, the only thing in the East Hall that needs a key is the grandfather clock. The Arbiter grinned as his footsteps never faltering. Exactly. Now, all of you, brace yourselves. I don't think anything can prepare you for what I'm about to show you. Pat and Melody gave Fiona a quizzical look, leading Fiona to simply shrug in response. The three followed the Arbiter as he approached the old grandfather clock, and he unlocked the wooden and glass door with the key. Ladies first, he said playfully as he opened the door. What is this, some sort of secret passage? Pat asked, as Melody and Fiona stepped inside the grandfather clock. Something like that, the Arbiter replied as he held open the door. Pat tilted his head and shrugged as he followed Fiona and his wife inside the clock. Once everyone else had stepped inside, the Arbiter followed suit, closing the door behind him. As soon as he had closed the door behind him, he heard the odd gasps of Melody, Pat, and Fiona. "It is a secret passageway!" exclaimed Melody. "But this doesn't make sense. Spatially, the room should take up the space of the rooms on either side of the clock," Pat remarked. "Something about this place. It's familiar somehow," Fiona whispered to herself. The Arbiter's smile had mutated into a toothy grin as he stepped around the odd trio and walked to the console in the center of the room. "I haven't been entirely forthright with you all. My name isn't Eddie. It's the Arbiter. I'm not originally from Earth. I'm from a planet called Gallifrey, and this is my ship, the TARDIS. It can travel in time and space. That's why I haven't aged. Well, not since we've all met, anyway." "I'd say you're crazy, but given everything we've seen, I'm starting to think I'm the one who's nuts," Pad remarked. Melody stared at the golden central column in fascination. "Is it magic like the airship flight cores?" The Arbiter shook his head. "No, it relies on the Eye of Harmony, a powerful black hole that was harnessed by my people in the early days of our ancient history. It disappears from one location and appears in a new place. The process relies on the materialization circuit, but I think a demonstration might be more helpful. I'll take us to your home in Merville Village." The Arbiter began adjusting the controls as Pad and Melody watched dumbstruck, but Fiona, her reaction was different. Old memories began flashing through her mind. She slowly sat down on one of the couches and held her head in her hand. Just before the Arbiter could activate the flight handbrake, he saw her sitting, and a small wave of concern washed over him. He turned his attention briefly to the newlyweds. "Please excuse me." And with that, he stepped away from the control column and over to the sitting area that Fiona had taken respite in. "Time travel. They said there was time travel in the days before Asgard," Fiona mumbled to herself. Terrible memories of an apocalyptic war flashed through Fiona's mind. A conflict so horrific it brought the entire universe to its knees. It was like an old forgotten nightmare was being relived in real time for her. The Arbiter strained to listen to her before he spoke up. Fiona, are you all right? Fiona tried to look up at him, but there were tears clouding her eyes. Oh, Eddie, I think I've forgotten something very important. Under any other circumstance, the Arbiter would have reminded her that his real name wasn't Eddie. Instead, he took a seat on the couch across from her, the two of them only separated by the tea table between the couches. Hey, Fiona, whatever it is, we'll face it together. There's no need to be afraid. You're here with me, and this is the safest ship in the universe. Fiona reached into her dress pocket and pulled something out. A small silver watch. Her gaze looked out at the transparent windows of the TARDIS, looking at the planet in its viewing window, her expression distant. Dad. Dad. Something made the Arbiter pause. When he saw the watch, he recognized it. In times of trouble, Time Lords would hide their consciousness inside of fob watches that had a perception filter. Could Fiona have been a time lady? If so, which one? Was she a notorious criminal like the Rani? Was she an adventurer like him? She could be anyone. Fiona, what's that you're holding? Fiona looked down at the watch, and like she had no clue what it was. I was found with it. A lost little girl roaming the plains of Asgard. I was found by the angels. The Arbiter made a subtle, almost imperceptible shift in his posture, leaning slightly away from where the two of them were sitting, a sense of unease filling him. Fiona, this is very important. Have you ever opened that watch before? The Arbiter already knew the answer. It was no coincidence that seeing his TARDIS had triggered some part of Fiona to take that watch out. Fiona sounded so frightened that the Arbiter's hearts broke for her. No, it's broken. Like me. The Arbiter gently reached out for Fiona's free hand. You're not broken. Just because you can't remember your past doesn't mean you need to be fixed in some way. By now, Pad and Melody had acclimated to their unusual situation and approached their friends, where they sat. The Arbiter's right, Fiona. We're your friends. You don't need to be afraid. We're here for you, Pad said encouragingly as he folded his arms. Melody, more aware of emotions than her husband, more aware of emotions than her husband, looked to Fiona and then the Arbiter. Arbiter, you seem like you know what's bothering Fiona. Is she going to be all right? The Arbiter ignored the question and shifted his gaze from the silver fob watch back to Fiona's face. Fiona, I'm here for you. But Fiona didn't hear him. The watch whispered to her, its voice desperate. I didn't actually know what to write here, so I just put an ellipses. It's open to interpretation what the watch was whispering to Fiona. Fiona looked down at the watch, and for the first time, she seemed to look at it like she knew it was in her hand. Okay, I'll do it. You'll do what? Melody asked. And as Fiona pressed the button on the watch's release catch, the Arbiter looked at her with realization. No, there's no way. Pad frowned. There's no way what? The Arbiter didn't answer. As a glowing light streamed from the watch into Fiona's eyes, the Arbiter let go of Fiona's hand. Regeneration energy could be dangerous, even to Time Lords, and while the process wasn't exactly regeneration, the energy used in it was the same. As the others looked on, Fiona began to remember everything. But rather than fear, Fiona felt only determination. A renewed confidence welled up within her. As the last of the golden energy entered into her, she closed the watch and placed it in her pocket. She looked down at herself. A dress and heels? And am I wearing a tiara? Did I marry someone? Melody let out a relieved laugh. No, that was us. You seem different, Fiona. She wrapped her arms around Pad's arm. Oh, was I a bridesmaid? Oh, Fiona? Yes, you would all know me by that, I suppose. The Arbiter looked at Fiona, fascinated by her transformation. For as long as he'd known her, she'd been very reserved, but very sweet. This new Fiona, this time lady, was different. Yeah, you were, actually, and I was best man. Fiona looked around, seemingly ignoring the Arbiter's confirming remark. Is this a TARDIS? It doesn't look like my dad's, Fiona asked as she stood up and walked over to the central control column. The Arbiter followed close behind. He wasn't sure how he felt about this new Fiona. Yes, it's my TARDIS. Bringing you and our friends here seems to have restored your memories, along with your Time Lady consciousness. But, Fiona, if that isn't your name, what should we call you? Fiona turned to the Arbiter and gave him a familiarly tender smile. I saw us, you know. I know how much you care about me, so I'll tell you my name instead of my title. The Arbiter's face went beet red. Time Lords and ladies revealing their names to each other outside of a formal marriage was like sex outside of marriage to humans. Fiona, wow, are we really... Fiona laughed, and it put the Arbiter at ease. Her smile, her laugh, looks like she's still in there, the Arbiter thought to himself as he laughed off the advance. Maybe later then, and don't think I haven't learned the Earth custom either. Maybe we can also do that once you think you're ready. The exchange was lost on Pad and Melody, who looked at the two even more confused than ever. Remembering the promise of a demonstration, the Arbiter attempted to compose himself and placed his hands on the launch handbrake. Melody, Pad, you two lovebirds ready to head home? Melody and Pad simply nodded, and the Arbiter threw it down. Right then, off we go, he said excitedly. After so many years of airship travel, it was thrilling to be flying his TARDIS again. The vrum of the TARDIS flying through the vortex was music to his ears, and it had an effect on Fiona too, as she hadn't heard a TARDIS since that night on Messaline when she tried to chase after her father's TARDIS when the terraforming energy kick-started her regeneration too late for her to catch up to him. Sure beats a vortex manipulator, Fiona said as she looked out at the transparent walls at the time vortex. Ugh, time travel in a can. That's dirty, the Arbiter said as he watched the golden plasma rush through the central column. The flight wasn't long, and they reached the little village only in a minute. When the vroom of the temporal engine stopped, Melody and Pad looked at the door that allowed them to enter into the otherworldly ship. As the quartet stepped out into the evening mist, Merville Village was quiet. A slight melancholy gripped the Arbiter again. Well, I guess this is goodbye. For now, at least. Unless, of course, you two want to come with us. Maybe see the universe for a while? Melody and Pad looked at each other and smiled before looking back at the Arbiter. We'll definitely take you up on that offer, but... Melody paused. Give it a while. I think for a few years we just want to enjoy married life. The Arbiter tried to not let his disappointment show. Of course. I've got a time machine. I'll pop in every few months or so. You're always welcome to come with me, and he turned his gaze to Fiona, who had simply held his hand in response. You're always welcome to come with us, and don't think I've forgotten my promise. We'll both come visit you, Fiona said as the two groups parted ways. The Arbiter made a mental note to make good on that promise to stop in every few months for them. Of course, for him it would probably be every few years or so. The Arbiter offered by the adventures offered by the universe called out to him, and now he'd be traveling with a fellow Time Lord, well, Time Lady to be more accurate. As the Arbiter and Fiona stepped back into the TARDIS, some of Fiona's earlier statements registered in his brain. Fiona, did you ever choose a name? Like, I'm the Arbiter. Who are you? Fiona smiled. I hadn't given it much thought, but my father once said I was a generated anomaly. What do you think? Should I be the anomaly? The Arbiter gave her a playful look over. I don't think it suits you. Oh, you used to be a priestess of Asgard. What about the priestess? Fiona molded over. I'll think about it. That generated anomaly comment was where I got my true name, but I guess it wouldn't hurt to define myself based on my adventures rather than my origin. The Arbiter smiled. Who was your father? Jenny gave the Arbiter a playful grin as she looked at him from across the control console. Oh, Dad? He's the Doctor. And that's where the story ends, chat.
Incoming ad break.
Looks like we had the perfect timing, too. Once y'all get back from the ads, I hope you guys, I hope y'all enjoyed it. I'm rusty at writing, I'll admit. I used to write on the regular when I was in high school and college. I actually wanted to be a writer before I became a security guard.